cast into the abyss, humanity rose and forged an empire of steel part. The Devourers came from the void between galaxies, ancient machines that had been consuming worlds for millions of years. They were not alive in any way the galaxy understood. They simply existed to feed, to grow, to consume everything in their path. President Nario stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Steel Concordat, addressing representatives from across the galaxy. Humans, Velthari, Krell, and dozens of other species filled the chamber. Species that had been enemies just years ago now sat together, united by fear. "We have confirmed reports from 17 systems," Nari said, her voice steady despite the terror of what she was describing. "The Devourers strip everything, atmosphere, water, minerals, even the planets themselves. They process it all into more machines, more ships. Each system they consume makes them stronger." The holographic display showed the progression, systems going dark one after another, moving steadily toward populated space. The Devourers advance like a wave of extinction, unstoppable and relentless. "How long before they reach our core worlds?" asked Ambassador Kelvin of the Velthari. The old arrogance was gone from his species now, replaced by desperate pragmatism. 6 months at their current speed, Admiral Isol Kang answered. She was 32 now, hardened by years of frontier combat. But they're accelerating. Every system they consume provides more resources for expansion. "Then we fight," said General Dewano, Nari's brother and commander of ground forces. "We throw everything at them. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier." "We already tried that," Isol replied grimly. Battle Group Theta engaged a Devourer fleet at the edge of the frontier. 80 ships against 50 of theirs. We destroyed them all but lost 76 ships in the process. And then, a week later, we detected 100 new Devourer ships in the same area. They rebuild faster than we can destroy them. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. This was an enemy they couldn't defeat through conventional warfare. Scientist Kira Yang, Sora's great-granddaughter, stood to speak. At 45, she headed Humanity's Advanced Research Division. "There might be another way. We've been studying the Devourer Rex from Battle Group Theta's engagement. They're machines, yes, but they operate on principles we're only beginning to understand. Quantum-level programming, self-replicating nanomachines, power generation through spatial manipulation. Can we beat them?" Nari asked directly. "Not by fighting conventionally," Kira admitted. "But maybe we can disrupt them. If we can create a weapon that targets their core programming, something that spreads like a virus through their network, we might be able to shut them down." "How long to develop this weapon?" Isol asked. 3 months. Maybe 4. And we'll need every scientist in the galaxy working on it. Human, Velthari, Krell, everyone. Nari made her decision. "Then we buy them that time. Admiral Kang, you'll command the defense fleet. Use every tactic we have, every ship we can spare. Hold the line for 4 months. And if we can't?" Isol asked. "Then nothing matters anyway," Nari replied. "This is an extinction-level threat. We succeed, or we die." The defense of the galaxy became humanity's greatest challenge, not because humans had to do it alone, but because for the first time in a century, they had to work with their former enemies as true equals. Admiral Isol Kang stood on the bridge of the Defiant, looking at the tactical display showing the combined fleet. 1,000 human ships, 500 Velthari vessels, 300 Krell warships, and hundreds more from smaller species. The largest armada ever assembled, unified under her command. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral." Her second-in-command reported. "The Velthari Admiral sends his regards and asks if you have final orders." Isol smiled grimly. A year ago, the Velthari would have questioned her authority. Now facing extinction, old grudges meant nothing. "Tell all forces, stand firm. Fight smart. And remember, we're not trying to win. We're buying time for the scientists to save us all." The Devourers came like a tsunami of metal and death. Thousands of ships, each one a factory producing more weapons, more drones, more death. They didn't negotiate. They didn't communicate. They simply advanced and consumed. The Battle of Barrier Line lasted 67 days. The combined fleet used every advantage they had. They fought in asteroid fields using the terrain. They used the abyss itself, drawing Devourers into radiation storms that damaged their systems. They coordinated attacks with perfect precision, human quantum communication allowing the fleet to act as one organism. But the casualties were horrific. Every day, dozens of ships were destroyed. Every night, Isul reviewed the casualty lists, seeing names of crew members she had trained with, served with, friends and colleagues who would never go home. On the 35th day, the Velthari battleship Pride of Kaltor was surrounded by devourer vessels. Captain Solon, the Velthari commander, sent a final message to the fleet. "This is Pride of Kaltor. We are lost, but we will make our deaths count. For the galaxy, for all our species, for the future." The battleship detonated its fusion core, taking 20 devourer ships with it. Isul watched the explosion on her screen, feeling a strange mixture of grief and pride. An enemy who had once tried to exterminate humanity had just sacrificed themselves to buy her people more time. On the 53rd day, a Krell destroyer saved a human carrier from a devourer ambush, taking fatal damage in the process. The human captain sent rescue ships immediately, pulling Krell survivors from the wreckage and treating them in human medical bays. The barriers between species were breaking down in the crucible of shared survival. They were no longer humans, Velthari, Krell, or others. They were the living, fighting against the machines of extinction. Back in Deep Station 7, Kira Yang worked with scientists from every species, pushing themselves beyond exhaustion. The quantum virus they were developing had to be perfect. One chance, no mistakes. "The problem is delivery," explained Velthari scientist Korin, now working shoulder to shoulder with his human colleagues. "We need to get close enough to a devourer command ship to upload the virus directly into their network. But their defenses are nearly impenetrable. Then we don't penetrate them," said Kira. "We let them capture us. A small ship carrying the virus designed to look valuable. They'll bring it aboard to process it, and that's when we activate." "That's suicide for whoever crews that ship," Korin pointed out. "I know," Kira replied quietly. "I'll pilot it myself." On the 67th day, with the defense fleet reduced to less than half strength, Kira's ship launched. It was small, fast, and filled with technology that would look valuable to the Devourers. And at its core, a quantum virus designed to spread through the Devourer network like wildfire. Admiral Isul ordered the fleet to create an opening, drawing Devourer forces away from the command ships. It was a desperate gamble, one that cost them dearly. 50 more ships were destroyed, creating that opportunity. Kira's ship raced toward the massive Devourer command vessel, taking fire from smaller drones. Her shields collapsed. Her hull breached. But she kept flying, kept moving forward. "For everyone who died at Earth," she whispered. "For everyone who suffered in the abyss. For all of us who still live. This is for the galaxy." Her ship crashed into the Devourer command vessel's processing bay. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the virus activated. It spread through the Devourer network at the speed of thought, rewriting core programming, corrupting systems, turning their own replication protocols against them. Across the battlefield, Devourer ships began to malfunction. Some shut down completely. Others turned on each other, their corrupted systems identifying nearby vessels as targets. Within an hour, the Devourer fleet was in chaos. Within a day, they were destroyed or disabled. The threat wasn't completely eliminated. There would be other Devourer fleets in other parts of the galaxy. But the immediate extinction-level danger had passed. The cost was staggering. 400 ships destroyed, 2 million casualties across all species, entire planets evacuated, their populations refugees. And Kira Yang, the scientist who had saved them all, dead in the wreckage of a Devourer ship. President Nario addressed the galaxy from Deep Station 7, looking exhausted but determined. "We have won a great victory. Not humans alone, but all of us together. The Devourers taught us what the Council's aggression and humanity's response had failed to teach. We are all in this together. All of us. And together we can survive anything." She proposed a new organization, the Federation of Free Worlds. Not an empire ruled by force, but a voluntary alliance of equal species, united for mutual defense and prosperity. The Steel Concordat would become just one member, albeit a powerful one. The proposal met resistance from military hardliners. General Dewano argued that humanity needed to maintain dominance, that showing weakness would invite attack, but Admiral Isil Kang, hero of the barrier line, disagreed. "We built an empire of steel because we had to," she told the assembled leadership, "because the galaxy was cruel and we needed to be crueler to survive. But the war with the Devourers showed us something else. We are stronger together, not just in military might but in spirit. If we continue ruling through fear, we become the thing we hated. We become the Council. Cast into the abyss, humanity rose and forged an empire of steel part. For 20 years after the Battle of the Threshold, the galaxy had transformed. Humanity controlled 50 star systems, their empire spreading like fire through the old Council territories. The population had grown to 8 billion, spread across dozens of worlds and hundreds of space stations. The Steel Concordat, as humanity's government was now called, ruled with iron discipline. Chancellor Yuna O had died 5 years earlier, replaced by a council of military officers and civilian administrators who understood one truth. Strength was the only currency that mattered in a hostile galaxy. Commander Bora Kim, humanity's chief diplomat, prepared for the most important meeting of her career. She was 35 years old, brilliant, and ruthlessly practical. Today she would stand before what remained of the Galactic Council and deliver humanity's terms. The Council chamber was a shadow of its former glory. Once 7 species had ruled here as equals. Now only 4 remained as unified powers. The Velthari Empire, though diminished, still held significant territory. 2 smaller species had banded together to form the Eastern Alliance, hoping safety in numbers would protect them from human expansion. The 4th species, the Krell, maintained nervous neutrality. 3 species had already surrendered to humanity, accepting integration into the Steel Concordat rather than face destruction. They had been oppressed minorities under Council rule, and many of their people actually welcomed human liberation. It wasn't freedom exactly, but it was better than what they had endured before. Bora stood before the holographic assembly, representing humanity's might. Behind her, transmitted live, was a feed showing the human fleet. 800 warships, with more being built every month. Primarch Veltar was gone, dead 3 years earlier, replaced by Primarch Kellor. The new Velthari leader was younger but no less arrogant. He glared at Bora with barely concealed hatred. "You call this a diplomatic meeting?" Kellor sneered. "You make demands backed by threats. This is extortion." "No," Bora replied calmly. "This is reality. A century ago you attacked Earth. You killed billions of innocent people. You tried to exterminate us. Now we are stronger than you, and you will accept our terms or face the consequences." She transmitted a document to all Council members. The terms were simple. Recognize the Steel Concordat as an independent power. Cede all former human colonies to human control. Pay reparations for the attack on Earth. And most importantly, submit to non-aggression treaties with strict enforcement clauses. "And if we refuse?" asked Representative Tomar of the Krell. Bora's expression didn't change. "Then we continue taking what we want by force. Your economies are collapsing. Your military is broken. You can accept peace on our terms, or you can face war until nothing remains of your civilizations. Choose." The diplomatic session ended without agreement, but Bora had expected that. Pride would make them resist at first, but economics and military reality would eventually force them to accept. While diplomacy played out, humanity's empire grew. Engineers transformed dead worlds into living ones. Scientists pushed the boundaries of technology even further. The military-industrial complex that had saved humanity in the abyss now built an empire. But not everyone was happy with the direction humanity had taken. June Park, a distant cousin of the legendary Jiwon, stood before a crowd of protesters in New Terra's capital city. At 42, he was a historian and activist, one of the few voices daring to question the Steel Concordat's policies. "We fought for survival," he told the crowd. "We fought to protect ourselves from genocide. But what are we becoming? We bomb civilian targets. We force entire species to submit. We rule through fear and military might. Are we the victims fighting for justice, or have we become the monsters we hated?" The crowd was divided. Some cheered his words, troubled by the brutality of human expansion. Others shouted him down as a traitor, arguing that strength was the only thing keeping humanity safe. Security forces, wearing the gray armor of the Concordat military, watched the protest carefully. They didn't intervene. Free speech was still technically allowed, but their presence was a reminder. The Steel Concordat was watching. High Commander Gina Park, now 60, heard about June's protests and called him to a private meeting. They met in her office on Deep Station 7, the heart of human military power. You're G1's blood, Gina said, studying her distant relative. She died protecting humanity. How can you question what we've built in her name? Because I read her journals, June replied. The ones kept in the archives. She didn't want an empire. She wanted humanity to survive, yes, but she also wanted us to remain human. Tell me, Commander, when we bomb a civilian city to force a surrender, are we still the people she died to protect? Gina was silent for a long moment. We do what we must. The galaxy taught us a hard lesson. We can be strong or we can be dead. There is no third option. That's what every tyrant in history has said, June countered. We're becoming what we fought against. Then what would you have us do? Gina asked, her voice cold. Disarm? Trust in the goodwill of species that tried to exterminate us? Your idealism will get humanity killed. And your pragmatism will kill humanity's soul, June replied. We can be strong without being cruel. We can defend ourselves without conquering others. But if we continue down this path, we'll win every battle and lose ourselves in the process. The meeting ended without resolution. But June's words troubled Gina more than she wanted to admit. The fracturing of the old Galactic Council accelerated. The Eastern Alliance attempted to form a military coalition against humanity. It lasted 3 months before human intelligence operatives, working with oppressed minorities within Alliance territory, sparked a revolution that tore the coalition apart from within. The Krell, seeing the writing on the wall, approached humanity with an offer. They would join the Steel Concordat voluntarily, maintaining some autonomy in exchange for protection and access to human technology. The Velthari Empire, once the proud leaders of the galaxy, found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Their territory shrank as species they had oppressed for centuries saw an opportunity for revenge. Some joined humanity. Others formed their own independent states. Primarch Kaller, desperate to salvage something, finally agreed to negotiations. The treaty signed on Deep Station 7 was humiliating for the Velthari but necessary. They kept their core worlds but ceded vast territories. They paid massive reparations, and they acknowledged the Steel Concordat as the dominant power in the galaxy. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Commander Bora Kim stood before Kaller, her face impassive as he signed the documents. You cast us into the abyss, Bora said, repeating the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. You thought darkness would consume us. Instead, we learned to see in the dark. We learned to thrive where you feared to tread. And now we have returned, not as the supplicants you rejected, but as the empire you created. Kaller's hands shook with rage as he signed. But he signed. The alternative was extinction. With the formal surrender, humanity controlled or influenced over 200 star systems. The population was projected to reach 20 billion within a generation. The military numbered over 1,000 warships, with production increasing every year. But the internal debates grew louder. Admiral Isil Kang, Minji's granddaughter and the youngest fleet admiral in history, found herself caught between competing visions of humanity's future. At 28, Isil commanded the frontier fleets defending human space from pirates and raiders. She had grown up hearing stories of the massacre at Earth, of the suffering in the abyss. She understood why humanity had become what it was, but she also saw the refugee camps, filled with aliens whose worlds had been destroyed in human military campaigns. She saw the fear in their eyes when human ships arrived. She heard the whispered comparisons between humanity and the old council. Are we liberators or conquerors? She asked her mentor, the aging Grand Admiral Sunho, now 75 and still sharp as ever. We're survivors, Sunho replied. Everything else is secondary. But for how long? Isil pressed. When does survival end and conquest begin? When do we stop? Sunho looked at her with tired eyes. I don't know. Maybe we never stop. Maybe that's what the galaxy made us. But I know this. If we show weakness, if we let down our guard, someone will try to destroy us again. The galaxy respects only strength. The Steel Concordat's leadership struggled with these questions too. President Nari-O, elected to lead the civilian government, represented a new generation. At 40, she had been born after the Battle of the Threshold, in a time when human victory was assured. She proposed reforms. Greater autonomy for integrated species, oversight of military operations, limits on expansion. The military leadership resisted, arguing that any weakness would be exploited. The debate raged in the halls of power while outside, the empire continued to grow. New colonies were established. Trade networks expanded. Human culture forged in the darkness of the abyss spread across the galaxy. And then, just as humanity seemed poised to consolidate its power, new signals were detected from beyond the galactic rim. Something was coming. Something that made the old council conflicts seem like children squabbling in a sandbox. Cast into the abyss, humanity rose and forged an empire of steel. Part 3. 100 years after the fall, humanity emerged from the abyss. High Commander Gina Park, great-granddaughter of G1, stood in the command center of the Indomitable, humanity's first true battleship. She was 40 years old, born in the darkness of the abyss, raised on stories of Earth and trained for one purpose: to reclaim what had been stolen. The fleet behind her was impressive. 400 warships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They were fast, deadly, and crewed by soldiers who had never known peace. These were the children and grandchildren of refugees, raised in underground cities, taught from birth that the galaxy owed them a debt paid in blood. All ships report ready. Commander, Grand Admiral Sun Ho Choi reported. He was Diho's grandson, and he carried his family's legacy with pride. His tactical genius had been refined over decades of simulation and training. Now finally he would put it to the test. "Take us out," Gina ordered. First target, New Terra. New Terra, the world where 200,000 humans had died, burned from orbit by Council weapons. For a century, the Council had used it as a mining colony, stripping the planet's resources, without a second thought for the bones buried in its radioactive soil. That was about to change. The human fleet emerged from the abyss like ghosts materializing from nightmares. One moment, the space around New Terra was empty. The next, 400 warships appeared, their weapons hot and their intentions clear. The Council garrison, consisting of 30 ships and several orbital platforms, never stood a chance. They tried to respond, tried to call for help, but human quantum jammers disrupted their communications instantly. They were alone, cut off, facing an enemy they thought was extinct. The battle was brutal and short. Human ships moved with precision, their abyss drives allowing them to appear and disappear like phantoms. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver practiced 1,000 times in simulation. Within 2 hours, the Council garrison was destroyed. Every ship, every platform, every installation on the planet's surface. The human fleet took no prisoners. Chancellor Yuna, humanity's civilian leader, observed the battle from Deep Station 7. She was 60 years old, pragmatic and cold. The abyss had taught humanity that mercy was a luxury they couldn't afford. "Begin Phase 2, she ordered. "Reclaim the outer colonies." Over the next 6 months, humanity struck again and again. Small Council outposts, mining operations, isolated colonies. Each target was chosen carefully. Hit hard, hit fast, leave nothing behind. The Battle of Crimson Point was particularly significant. A Council fuel depot, protected by 50 warships, was considered impregnable. Admiral Minji Kang, now in her 70s but still sharp, led the assault personally. She used the asteroid field surrounding the depot as cover, splitting her fleet into small groups that struck from multiple directions. When the Council ships tried to regroup, human vessels appeared behind them, cutting off retreat. The quantum communication system allowed perfect coordination, while the enemy fumbled with traditional communications. 50 Council ships destroyed. The fuel depot captured intact, and most importantly, prisoners. For the first time, humanity took Council soldiers alive. The interrogations revealed valuable intelligence. The Council was in chaos. The species that made up the Galactic Council were arguing among themselves about how to respond to the human threat. Some wanted to negotiate, others demanded total extermination, but all of them were afraid. "They thought we were dead," Gina told her officers during a strategy meeting. "Our return has shaken them. They don't understand how we survived, how we got so strong. That fear is a weapon we can use." The siege of Arcturus Gate was humanity's boldest move yet. The gate was a massive space station that controlled access to a major trade route. It was defended by 200 Council ships and considered one of their most secure positions. Grand Admiral Sun Ho devised a plan that was pure madness. Half the human fleet would attack head-on, drawing the defenders away from the station. The other half would use abyss drives to jump directly inside the defensive perimeter, appearing in the middle of the enemy formation. The tactic should have been suicide. But Sun Ho had calculated everything perfectly. The Council ships, caught between two forces and unable to coordinate effectively, tore themselves apart trying to respond to threats from every direction. When the battle ended, Arcturus Gate belonged to humanity. The cost was high, 40 human ships destroyed, but the strategic value was immense. The Council's trade network in that entire sector collapsed overnight. The galaxy watched in shock and horror. The humans, the species everyone thought had been wiped out, were back. And they were winning. Primarch Veltar, now ancient but still ruling the Velthari Empire, called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The holographic chamber was filled with representatives from the 7 species, all of them talking at once, panicking. "Silence," Veltar commanded. His voice was weaker than it had been a century ago, but still carried authority. "The human infestation must be dealt with. I am assembling the largest fleet in Council history. 2,000 ships. We will crush them once and for all." Some Council members objected. The humans had proven themselves formidable. Perhaps negotiation was wiser. But Veltar would not hear it. "They are animals," he declared. "Dangerous beasts that must be put down. We made a mistake a century ago by not hunting them to extinction. We will not make that mistake again." The Council fleet began assembling near the edge of the abyss. 2,000 ships representing the combined might of 7 spacefaring species. It was the largest armada ever gathered, enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Human intelligence networks, built carefully over the past months, detected the buildup immediately. Chancellor Yuna, High Commander Gina Park, and Grand Admiral Sunho met in emergency session. "We can't match those numbers," Sunho said bluntly. "Even with our technological advantages, 2,000 ships against 400? The math doesn't work." "Then we don't fight them in open space," Gina replied. "We draw them into the abyss, make them fight on our ground in conditions we understand and they fear." Yuna considered this. "It's a risk. If we lose, humanity loses everything. If we run, we lose anyway," Gina countered. "They'll hunt us forever. No, we make our stand here at the threshold of the abyss. We show them that the darkness belongs to us now." The human fleet positioned itself at the edge of the nebula, 400 ships against 2,000. The Council fleet approached with confidence, their commanders certain of victory. The Battle of the Threshold would be remembered as the turning point in galactic history. The Council fleet attacked in a massive formation, expecting to overwhelm the humans with superior numbers. But Sunho had prepared a trap. As the Council ships advanced, they encountered the edge of the abyss, the radiation storms and spatial anomalies that made the region so deadly. Human ships, their hulls hardened against radiation, and their crews trained to navigate the storms, danced through the chaos. Council ships built for normal space struggled. Their sensors malfunctioned. Their communications broke down. Their formations fell apart. The battle raged for 3 days. The space at the threshold of the abyss became a graveyard of ships. Human vessels darted in and out of the nebula, striking and retreating before the Council could respond. They used every trick, every advantage the abyss provided. When Council ships tried to follow them into the nebula, the results were catastrophic. Ships collided with each other in the darkness. Captains, unable to coordinate, made fatal mistakes. The radiation cooked crews alive when shields failed. Human losses were severe. 200 ships destroyed, thousands of crew members dead. But Council losses were catastrophic. 1,600 ships lost in the chaos of the abyss. On the 3rd day, the remaining Council fleet retreated. They had come to destroy humanity once and for all. Instead, they had been broken. Gina stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy flee. Her ship was damaged, leaking atmosphere, running on backup power. Around her, the crew worked frantically to keep systems operational. They were exhausted, traumatized, but victorious. "Send a message to all Council frequencies," Gina ordered. "Wide broadcast. I want everyone to hear this." When the communication channel opened, she spoke calmly and clearly. 100 years ago, you cast us into the abyss. You thought we would die in the darkness. You were wrong. The abyss became our home, our forge, our teacher. We learned to survive where you could not. We learned to fight in ways you cannot imagine. And now we are coming for you, not as beggars asking for permission to exist, not as refugees seeking mercy, but as an empire that will take what is ours. This is your only warning. Stay out of our way or share the fate of your fleets. The age of the Council is over. The age of humanity has begun. The message echoed across the galaxy, and everywhere, species that had lived under council rule for millennia heard it and wondered, could it be true? Had humanity really become so powerful? The answer they would soon learn was yes. The Iron Tide had begun and nothing would stop it. Cast into the abyss, humanity rose and forged an empire of steel part. 250 years had passed since humanity fled into the abyss. 50 years of suffering, death, and transformation. General Hyon Park stood at the observation window of Deep Station 7, watching the purple radiation storm sweep across the void. She was 32 years old and had never seen Earth. Her mother, Jaiwan, had died 15 years ago, killed by a reactor failure on one of the first colony asteroids. Hyon had inherited her mother's determination and her hatred of the Council. The abyss was a nightmare region of space. The dark nebula stretched for hundreds of light years, filled with deadly radiation, gravitational anomalies, and rogue planets that drifted through the darkness like ghosts. The Council avoided it completely. They considered it worthless, uninhabitable, a death trap. They were right. It was all those things. But humanity had learned to survive anyway. The 17 ships that had escaped Earth's destruction had found 3 rogue planets deep within the abyss. Worlds that had been ejected from their solar systems millions of years ago, now drifting cold and dark through space. The survivors had landed on these frozen rocks and began to dig underground. That was the key to survival. Beneath kilometers of ice and rock, humanity built their new cities, sealed habitats powered by fusion reactors, lit by artificial suns, sustained by hydroponic farms and recycling systems that captured every drop of water, every breath of air. Life was hard. Children grew up never seeing natural sunlight, never feeling wind on their faces, never knowing the simple joy of running through grass. They were taught to fear the surface, to respect the radiation, to understand that one mistake could kill everyone in a habitat section. But they survived. And more than that, they adapted. Chief Engineer Taeyang Lee, Hana's son, worked in the massive industrial complex carved into the heart of Deep Station 7. At 28, he was already one of humanity's leading scientists, continuing his mother's work on advanced propulsion systems. "The abyss is trying to kill us," he often said, "so we'll make it work for us instead." His laboratory was a marvel of improvisation. Equipment salvaged from the original fleet, combined with materials mined from asteroids powered by fusion reactors that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. Taeyang had inherited his mother's genius and added his own innovations. Scientist Sora Yang worked in the adjacent lab, studying the unique properties of the abyss itself. She was old now, one of the original survivors, her hair white and her hands shaking, but her mind was still sharp. "The radiation here isn't random," she explained to Taeyang during one of their daily meetings. "There's a pattern. The spatial anomalies create fluctuations in the fabric of space-time. If we can understand it, harness it, we might be able to develop a new form of faster-than-light travel. Better than what the Council has?" Taeyang asked. Sora smiled. "Much better." While the scientists worked on technology, the military prepared for war. Captain Daeho Choi, now an old man, trained the new generation of soldiers. His granddaughter, Minji Kang, showed exceptional promise. At 25, Admiral Minji Kang commanded a squadron of patrol ships that protected the hidden colonies from any Council scouts that might stumble into the abyss. She had spent her entire life preparing for combat, learning tactics, studying every scrap of information about Council military doctrine. "They think we're dead," she told her pilots during a briefing. "That's our advantage. When we strike, it will be like a ghost coming back to haunt them." The human fleet had grown slowly over the decades. The original 17 ships had been cannibalized for parts, their materials used to build new vessels. The shipyards hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids worked constantly. Every ship was designed for one purpose, to hurt the Council. Humanity couldn't match the Council's numbers. Not yet, but they could be faster, smarter, more ruthless. Every design incorporated lessons learned from the massacre at Earth. Every weapon system was tested and retested. Every pilot trained until they could fly through radiation storms with their eyes closed. The colonies themselves reflected humanity's transformation. The original survivors had tried to maintain Earth's culture, its music and art and traditions. But the next generation, those born in the abyss, created something new. Harder, colder, more practical. Junho, now 65 years old, remembered arriving as a teenager. He had watched the old ways slowly fade away, replaced by what they called the doctrine of survival. Everyone worked. Everyone contributed. Weakness meant death, not just for yourself but for everyone who depended on you. "We're not the same species that left Earth," he told the youngsters in his teaching sessions. "The Abyss changed us, made us stronger. When the Council attacked, we were soft, peaceful, naive. We believed in diplomacy and cooperation. The Council taught us a hard lesson. Power is all that matters, and we will become powerful." The breakthrough came in the 47th year. Sora Yang, working with Taeyang Li, finally cracked the secret of the Abyss's spatial anomalies. They called it the Abyss Drive. By creating a controlled quantum fluctuation, they could slip through space-time itself, traveling faster than the Council's best ships while using less energy. The technology was dangerous, requiring precise calculations and nerves of steel. But it worked. The first test flight was conducted by Admiral Minji Kang personally. She took a small prototype ship and jumped from Deep Station 7 to the edge of the Abyss and back. The journey that should have taken 3 days took 6 hours. When she returned, her hands were shaking and her face was pale. "It's like falling through reality itself," she reported. "But it works. We can outrun anything the Council has." The second breakthrough was in communication. Using quantum entanglement, human scientists developed a way to send messages instantaneously across any distance. Unlike the Council's communication systems, which relied on relay stations and light-speed transmissions, humanity's new system was impossible to intercept or jam. "We can coordinate our forces better than they can," Taeyang explained to General Hyon Park. "When we strike, we'll move as one unified force while they're still trying to figure out what's happening." The third breakthrough was in production. The massive fusion forges built deep inside the largest rogue planet could produce hull plating, weapons, and components faster than anyone had thought possible. Raw materials from asteroid mining operations were processed and assembled with ruthless efficiency. Humanity was preparing for war. But they needed to test their new capabilities first. The opportunity came in the 50th year. A Council patrol consisting of 3 ships strayed too close to the Abyss while chasing pirates. They detected unusual energy signatures and moved to investigate. Admiral Minji Kang took personal command of the response. She had 12 ships under her command, a small fleet by Council standards, but the pride of humanity's rebuilt navy. "Remember," she told her captains over the quantum comm system, "no survivors. No evidence. We're ghosts. Let them think they found nothing but spatial anomalies." The ambush was perfect. The Council ships, confident in their superiority, moved deeper into the Abyss, Minji's fleet, using the unique properties of the nebula to mask their approach, struck from multiple directions at once. The battle lasted 18 minutes. The Council ships tried to fight back, their weapons powerful and accurate. But human ships danced through the radiation storms, using the environment as a weapon. They coordinated their attacks with perfect precision, thanks to quantum communication. And when they hit hard. All 3 Council ships were destroyed. Escape pods were targeted and eliminated. As ordered, no survivors. Minji watched the debris scatter through the nebula, eventually to be consumed by the radiation and spatial anomalies. The Council would never know what happened to their patrol, but humanity knew. They had drawn first blood. 50 years after being cast into the Abyss, humanity had struck back. When Minji returned to Deep Station 7, the entire colony celebrated. It was the first human victory over the Council, small, insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but psychologically vital. General Hyon Park stood beside old Captain Daeho Choi at the ceremony honoring the fleet. Daeho was dying, cancer from decades of radiation exposure slowly killing him, but he smiled as he watched the young warriors celebrate. "Your mother would be proud," he whispered to Hyon. "They'll know soon," Hyon replied. "When their patrol doesn't report back, they'll investigate. They'll realize we survived." "Good," Daeho said. "Let them know. Let them fear. For 50 years we've hidden in the dark. It's time to show them what the Abyss created." That night, in the Council chambers carved from solid rock, humanity's leaders made their decision. Another 50 years of preparation, then they would emerge, not as refugees begging for mercy, but as warriors demanding vengeance. The Abyss had tried to kill them, The Council had expected them to die. Instead, humanity had evolved. They had become something new. Something dangerous. The children of Earth were gone, replaced by the children of the Abyss, and these children had learned to thrive in the dark. Cast into the Abyss, humanity rose and forged an empire of steel. Part 1. Commander Jiwon Park stood on the bridge of humanity's finest starship, the Horizon's Dream, and watched the alien vessels approach. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear. This was it. The moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. First contact with alien life. The 7 ships that emerged from faster-than-light travel were beautiful and terrifying. Each one represented a different species from what they called the Galactic Council. Their hulls gleamed with materials Earth scientists could barely understand. Their weapons, though not aimed at the human fleet, were clearly visible and powerful. Dr. Min-Ho Kim adjusted his glasses nervously beside her. He had spent his entire career preparing for this moment, studying every theory about alien contact. Nothing had prepared him for the reality. Commander, they're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. I think they want to talk. Put them through, Jiwon said, straightening her uniform. The holographic display flickered to life. A tall, elegant creature appeared, its skin shimmering like oil on water. Its eyes were cold and calculating. When it spoke, the translation software turned its words into perfect Korean, though something about the tone felt wrong. Condescending, superior. Humans of Earth, the alien said, its voice echoing through the bridge. I am Primarch Veltar of the Veltari Empire. You have been detected using faster-than-light technology. This technology is regulated by the Galactic Council. You will cease all FTL operations immediately and submit to Council authority. Jiwon felt her excitement drain away, replaced by a cold knot in her stomach. Primarch Veltar, we come in peace. We seek only to explore and learn. Surely there is room in the galaxy for humanity to— You misunderstand, Veltar interrupted. This is not a negotiation. Your species is primitive, dangerous. You will accept protected status under Council law. You will surrender your FTL technology. You will remain in your home system until the Council determines you are ready for galactic society. This may take several centuries. Minho gasped beside her. Engineer Hana Lee, who had been monitoring the alien ships from her station, looked up with anger in her eyes. They can't be serious. They want us to give up everything? To stay locked in our own solar system like prisoners? Jiwon raised her hand for silence. She took a deep breath and addressed the Primarch again. With respect, Primarch, humanity has worked for generations to reach the stars. We cannot and will not surrender our freedom to explore. We ask to join the Galactic Council as equals. The Primarch's expression didn't change, but something cold flashed in its eyes. Equals. You have one starship. The Council commands millions. You have explored one star system. We govern 100,000. You are children playing with fire, and you will burn yourselves and others. I will give you one of your Earth weeks to accept our terms. If you refuse, there will be consequences. The transmission cut off. The bridge fell silent. Jiwon looked around at her crew. These were Earth's best and brightest, the culmination of human achievement. They had traveled 20 light-years to meet their galactic neighbors, hoping for friendship, trade, and knowledge. Instead, they had found arrogance and threats. Take us home, Jiwon ordered. Full speed. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. When they arrived, the solar system was bustling with activity. Humanity had been busy during their absence. New colonies were being built on Mars and Europa. Mining operations stretched throughout the asteroid belt. Orbital shipyards around Earth were constructing a dozen new starships. The hope of the species was visible in every station, every ship, every smiling face on the communication screens. Jiwon's report to Earth's government shattered that hope like glass. The response from Earth was unanimous. Humanity would not kneel. They would not surrender their dreams. If the Council wanted to keep them caged, humanity would fight for their freedom. It was the worst decision humanity ever made. And the best. The Council's response came exactly 1 week later, not with words but with weapons. Jiwon was on Earth meeting with government officials when the alarm started screaming. She ran to the command center and watched in horror as the displays lit up with hostile contacts. Hundreds of them. The Council had sent a fleet. The human colony on New Terra, a beautiful world 30 light-years from Earth, was the first to die. 200,000 people lived there. Families, scientists, dreamers. The Council ships bombarded the planet from orbit for 6 hours. When they finished, nothing remained but radioactive ash. Earth's orbital defenses fought bravely. The massive railguns and missile platforms that had taken decades to build managed to destroy a few Council ships, but it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. The Council had been building weapons for thousands of years. Humanity had been in space for barely a century. One by one, the defense platforms exploded. Debris rained down on Earth's atmosphere, streaking across the sky like falling stars. Each streak represented countless lives lost, dreams destroyed. Hana Lee was in the main orbital shipyard when it was hit. She managed to get an escape pod away along with 50 other workers. They watched through the pod's small windows as the massive structure that had taken 10 years to build tore itself apart in silent explosions. The human fleet, such as it was, tried to defend their homeworld. 20 starships against 300 Council vessels. Captain Daeho Choi led the defense with courage and skill, using Earth's moon as cover, striking fast and retreating before the enemy could respond. His tactics saved thousands of lives by drawing the Council fleet away from Earth itself. But it wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Ji-won watched from Earth's surface as ship after ship disappeared from the tactical display. Each one represented hundreds of crew members, people she had trained with, friends, colleagues, heroes who died trying to protect humanity's future. The Council's message was clear. Defy us and this is your fate. After 36 hours of fighting, Daeho sent an emergency broadcast to all remaining human forces. This is Captain Choi. Earth is blockaded. Our fleet is destroyed. All surviving ships are to retreat immediately. Head for the Galactic Rim into the Dark Nebula region. It's our only chance. Go now. Survive. Make them pay for this. 17 ships managed to escape. The Horizon's Dream was among them. Barely functional, its hull scarred by weapons fire. Ji-won sat in her captain's chair, staring at the rear displays as Earth grew smaller behind them. The beautiful blue world that had given birth to humanity was now a prison, surrounded by Council ships. Behind them, they left 4 billion dead. Entire cities destroyed. The dreams of a species crushed beneath the heel of galactic tyranny. As the surviving ships jumped into FTL, racing toward the dark nebula the Council called the Abyss, Ji-won made a promise. To herself, to her crew, to the billions who had died. We will survive, she whispered. We will grow strong. And one day we will return. This isn't the end of humanity. It's just the beginning. The ships disappeared into the darkness, carrying with them 300 million survivors. The Council assumed they would die in the Abyss within a generation. The region was filled with radiation storms, spatial anomalies, and rogue planets. Nothing could survive there. The Council was wrong. Humanity had been cast into the Abyss, and in that darkness, something new would be forged. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would shake the very foundations of the Council's ancient empire. The age of human suffering had begun. But so too had the age of human vengeance.